Welcome back to the Seeing Red podcast. A lot of stuff's been going on. Haven't recorded in a few weeks. I've had a lot of going on in my personal life. I'll get to that at the end of the show. We can talk a little bit more about it. But what's happening right now, Scott Braddock and Brad Johnson are reporting in different ways that it appears as if Speaker Phelan is bowed out of the race for another term as Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives. Brad Johnson of the Texan has also reported that the trial balloon that Burroughs put out got knocked down. Burroughs was a top lieutenant based out of Lubbock. And as a reminder, Speaker Phelan is based out of the Beaumont district. A lot of times what happens with speakers races is that Dallas representatives don't want a Houston rep, don't want a San Antonio rep, and kind of all the way around. So you'll often find that you end up with a speaker not from a major Dallas or Houston. So we had Speaker Craddock and Speaker Strauss from Midland and then from San Antonio. And Speaker Bonin was from the coastal area of Houston, but only for one term. He got ousted pretty quickly. And then we had Speaker Phelan out of Beaumont for the past two terms. So who's up? Well, the people who've been running against Speaker Phelan in the primaries and running against all of his allies have effectively put up Representative David Cook. David Cook appears to be a no-go. You have to keep in mind there are two votes that are at play here. There's the Republican caucus vote, and then there's the vote for the speaker. The Republican caucus vote requires a 2/3 majority of Republicans to vote for one candidate of just Republican members in order to garner the endorsement. And there are some, if you vote against it, there are some attachments that go with not voting the right way. Like they can campaign against you, you're not part of the caucus. And then I think there are parts of the Republican Party platform that make that a ding against you that allows you to be censured. And it takes 2 or 3 dings in order to qualify to be censured. So that just you come out the gate one thing away from being censured, which there are competing ideologies on the power of that censure. The Republican Party really wants to make that be a thing where that can disqualify you from the ballot. We haven't heard what the state of Texas thinks about that legal justification, but people really don't want to test it and be the trial balloon. So, can any Republican get 55 votes? We will know tomorrow because the voting happens on one day. I'm not sure if there's more than one ballot. If there's not a resolution on that first day, if they can recall it before the session gavels in January. But I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I don't see 55 coming together and saying, yeah, we're going to endorse. And what that means is there's going to be an open floor fight. In which case the Democrats have a play because it's just a vote of the membership. Now, unlike the United States Congress, my understanding is that the Texas speaker has to be a member of the body. Whenever you have speaker fights in the U.S. House, people like to talk about how it could be anybody. I believe my congressman decided to try and float Donald Trump's name as a possible speaker candidate last year. But and my understanding is in Texas, it has to be a member of the body. So it has to be one of the 150 members of the House of Representatives who will be speaker. Like I mentioned before, it's been people who aren't from Houston or Dallas because there's a lot of members from Houston and Dallas. They don't want favoritism. And it's probably almost certainly not going to be anybody from Houston because you have the lieutenant governor from Houston already. Governor Abbott served as a local Houston area judge before he went to statewide office. Even though he's born in the Dallas area and raised in Wichita Falls, but or the other way around. But so you have you have that element to it. So the next thing that appears to have happened is that the people who are supporting Phelan floated Representative Burroughs out of Lubbock, and that seems to have been shot down thus far from what I'm seeing reported. So let's look at some other options. So from kind of different elements of the party, there are a few people that come to mind that have some service, have been chairman, and are, and being a chair just means you competently, assumedly, manage the legislative process to some degree or another, or at the very least, you've still somehow maintained friends in the legislature or made enemies and won't make it there, as the case can happen. I'm looking at 3 names in particular. There are a couple more in the back of my head I might mention. You have Hunter out of the Corpus Christi area, long time friend of Governor Abbott's, and is somebody who is loves, like, a big follower of the rules and the procedures of the House. Somebody who is my understanding, a big advocate of school choice, and those are things that could get the thing across the line. Some other rural reps, you can see Brooks Landgraf out of the Permian Basin. Those are some people I'm hearing about, and then someone I'm not hearing about is Lozano, also kind of out of that coastal Bend area. I think he's based out of Kingsville, home of the Kings Ranch. He was a former Democrat. I think he was a term as a Democrat and flipped over like 10 years ago. And he is one of the first people who was in the leadership team or a chairman that flipped over to supporting, like, not supporting Speaker Phelan. I think Lozano's an interesting choice. He still has friends on the Democrat side of the aisle. He could pull some votes for Speaker's race if it goes to a floor fight over there. But he's been, a dyed-in-the-wool conservative the whole time, and could probably make a case for himself. Some kind of black sheep I'm hearing about are former Speaker Craddock, who was the first Republican speaker since the 1800s, making a comeback. I don't see that happening. People have forgotten how he ruled with an iron fist and did not let people vote their district. Also, I believe he was speaker when Republicans passed the DREAM Act in Texas in 2003 unanimously. That'll burn him to the ground in the current environment. It's amazing that he's still in office with that vote alone, but he's been in office since, I believe, the 60s. If not the 60s, the early 70s. I don't see that happening. And then you also have folks like Candy Noble, who is a Dallas rep, and then Will Metcalf, who is a Conroe, Montgomery County rep. So you have these other folks who've been around and who are respected and who are in fairly safe, at least on the general election ballot, electors or representatives who are kind of being talked about as when we go to a completely open thing of who's even could be suggested. Those are the ones that people are thinking about. Now, when it comes to an open speaker fight, when you have this kind of margin, how much Democrat support can you take? What is a appropriate level, especially when it goes to a floor fight, of maintaining that going into the next term? Because speakers like to maintain the speakership as they can. It's hard to say, especially if you're not in the dome and you're not somebody who has a vote. If you have a vote, you have all the information, not all of it actually. You have some limited information, but you at least have more than everyone else. We're seeing stuff. The folks like me and the reporters following it, people on Twitter, we're just reacting to the things that people are seeing, and we're trying to read tea leaves. No one, and that's the main thing I want to get across here, is no one knows until it's in the press release, I guess, how any major person's going to actually go, or it says they're going to go. We don't actually know Phelan's out. As at the time of recording, we may know it by the time this was released, but these are just things to think about. The main thing is, though, it's very hard to even think of a person who can get enough votes, and nobody, literally no one, can think of somebody who can get the votes without Democrat help. And let's think about what's happened to the past few speakers. You had Speaker Strauss, who was constantly bombarded with anti-Semitic attacks, but also just vitriol from our side of the aisle, just talking about how he wasn't conservative enough. You had Speaker Bonin, who ended up working with the folks on the other side, but they recorded him and released it instead of working with him to get the people out, he had said. And you had Speaker Phelan, who got the COVID year off, and then this next term they went full bore after him. So if you want this seat, even if you have their support for this term, well, who's to say you're going to have it in 2 years? You might have 2 years, but in 4 years, who cares? Then you have people like Governor Abbott who want school choice done, and they want it done now. Governor Abbott's, from all posturing, is running again for re-election, and he wants to run on school choice. That he got it across the finish line, and at this point, there really won't be any negative headlines out of the results of it by the time it's implemented. By the time he runs, he can just run on the fact that he did it. I mean, so that's the major impetus from that body of work. So how much does Governor Abbott's leanings, because he's not going to outwardly say who he supports in a speaker's race, he doesn't get involved at that level, but people are going to try to read tea leaves on who can actually get something across the finish line on school choice. But the corollary to that is going to be the Democrats don't want to support that person. So who can get 75 Republicans on school choice and just be a school choice speaker? Can anybody conceivably say, I'll only run for one term? And I think the only way somebody can conceivably say they're going to run for one term is if they say they're going to run for something else after. I will be speaker in this term, and I will take that record, and I will run for X. Senator, because people want to run against Cornyn, they shouldn't, but whatever. Just talking about hypothetically. Governorship's not open. The House hates the Senate. Maybe they take it to Lieutenant Governor Patrick. Maybe Patrick bows out. Maybe Patrick ends up saying, yeah, no, you got it done, whatever else. But if you have somebody who says, here is what my plan is. I will be speaker for 2 years. You can run this again, figure it out. I will let people vote their districts and just basically let things happen. And I'm going to be the speaker and take my record as speaker and then run for state office, like a statewide office. I could see that being a reasonable, exit path that somebody in the speakership would want to take. Not necessarily want to take, but could conceivably take. If you make that kind of promise and you don't follow through, it's hard to win the next term. We're getting to the weeds a little bit, which is great. That's what the show's for. All of that to say is a lot of moving parts are happening very quickly. The caucus vote is tomorrow. We'll see what happens. The reason, though, as we shift to a new topic, why I haven't been on since the election is that I'm in the process of looking for a new job and having a podcast where I go talk about all of my favorite political theories whenever I'm looking for jobs in politics is not necessarily the greatest job searching technique. So I am using my platform that I have for the people who stay till the end to say, I'm looking for a job. If you're hiring political operatives who are thinking about things at a different level and want to do it, give me a call, give me a text. If you have my number, if not, host at seeingredpodcast.com. Shoot me a line. I'm looking for work. I also have an LLC, so I can be a consultant or do it as a contractor, depending on the type of work. I want to help conservatives get conservative legislation across the finish line, and however that looks. I am opinionated, so I have a podcast. I like to think my opinions and my thoughts are good, but I've not used this platform to I've not used this platform in the past to advertise or anything else. So I'm taking this moment to do that for once. And maybe somebody will see it, and if they can't think of anything, let me know. I'm based in the Houston area. I'd love to work on a statewide campaign and the 2026 cycle. So if you're looking to run for, I won't work against Governor Abbott, but if you're looking to run for something else, open seat or otherwise, let me know. Happy to talk you through how I can help. And if you just own a company that needs help with digital advertising or email marketing, that type of stuff, that's what my bread and butter has been. So I would appreciate you taking a look. My company website's fulceconsulting.com. I don't think I've updated it for information wise in a while, but you can find my contact info for that there. But I appreciate y'all listening every week. I'll start recording again. I might be a little more muted in my opinions of things as they come out, as I'm not a reporter and I'm more of just a guy who has an opinion. It's kind of hard to do an opinion king and opinion podcast whenever you're holding back, because when you work for somebody, your opinion is their opinion and you have to make sure they're in line. So I don't want to speak out of turn or put myself in a worse position for possible employment opportunities. So that's kind of where we're at. I appreciate y'all listening. I'll be back eventually, one way or the other. Can't leave my fans for too long, but thank you so much for watching. And if you have any thoughts on the speaker's race or who should be speaker, drop us a line, drop us a comment. And we'll, I can't say we'll see you next week, but we'll see you when we see you. Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Seeing Red podcast. It's always Texas politics and beyond. We present the facts and opinions. The Seeing Red podcast with your host, Andy Turner and Garrett Fulce. Thank you, and tune in next week. And please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode.